Hello and welcome to the Avrum Rosensweig Show.
Welcome to one of the internet's best podcasts, where we dive deep into the lives of the extraordinary and fascinating people who leave an indelible mark on our world. Join us as we explore their captivating stories, remarkable achievements, and unique perspectives that shape history and inspire generations. Get ready to embark on a journey through the lives of inspiring people unlike any other.
Hello and welcome to the Avrum Rosensweig Show. My name is Avrum Rosensweig, and I am here with my partner, my colleague, my friend, Rabbi Shlomo Gemara for Parsha and Prose. How are you, Rabbi?
Baruch Hashem, thank you very much. This week I actually started a very different phase of my work because students are not here, teachers are not here, and we work solely on administrative stuff, start to prepare for next year, all kind of courses. So it's a different way of working. We still work very hard, but in a different way. I'm still excited about the miracle that we had just a week and a half ago, and I think this is going to be a story that many generations are going to tell, and rightfully so, about what happened in Israel. You remember once you asked me about the tefillah that I love the most, and I told you Ezrat Israel, the one that you say between Shema and Shmones, and you say interesting choice. And to me, it's not an interesting choice. If I have to experience God presence, I would say that to me personally, the most is through history. I'm looking at the history and I said, well, you cannot explain the Jewish history without this mysterious factor of a visible, invisible hand that set Am Israel to survive. And sometimes you read about it, sometimes you think about it, sometimes you see it. And what we saw just a week and a half ago is, to me, a miracle that deserves Hallel. And I'm still like every day when I wake up, I'm so proud to be Jew, proud to be part of the nation of God, and it gives me a very good mood.
Does it change you spiritually at all?
I think so. I find myself think more about God and His presence in my life. Yes, absolutely yes. Um, Maybe even it will help me to pray in a deeper understanding of many other parts of davening, because when you feel that God is around you, you change, you have to change, right? And how much, because you have to understand people cannot change over a second or two or three, because even when you realize that you have to change, the habits drag you in the other direction. So it's work. You conquer a small area every single day until you reach something significant. So think about the Jewish people in the desert, something that we will discuss today. They saw the hand of God, not even as a miracle as we saw it about what happened in Iran and the intercepting of ballistic missiles by Israel. They saw the split of the sea. They saw a whole nation of slaves leaving Egypt. They saw it. And nevertheless, somewhere they were still slaves. Because even open miracle that cannot be deniable cannot change the behavior of a person. It has to be slowly. And to the Jewish people, for example, it took 40 years until they became a nation that was ready to the challenges in front of them, to release the mentality of slaves that their forefathers had, and they had to get rid of them.
You know, we're still very critical of the Bnei Yisrael for complaining so much about God and about Moshe and Aaron. And I like your answer because I happen to agree with it. I think you're right. excuse me, that it would appear that even when a miracle happens in front of you, almost like seeing God, just short of that, it like you're saying, it's not enough to change you as a human being. That takes time. I think that's a good point.
It's a very important point, in my opinion. And therefore, as an educator, many, many times, students come to my room after they got in trouble with the teacher. And sometimes, especially the novice teachers, they say, okay, I want you to promise me that you are going to change. And I laugh to myself, like, he can promise. And maybe at this point, you really want to change. It might take years until he will change or she will change. Because just promises, nedarim, and shvuot are not good enough. You have to overcome your habits. This is something that take long time because we are, it going on the positive and the negative side. The reason why we teach little kids to daven, although they have no idea who is God, we teach them Torah when they have no idea what the concepts of the Torah. When we teach them to bench, to say the blessing, they have no idea who they are blessing to. It's to create these habits with the hope that one day they even will understand what they do. But it goes also the other direction. If people used to do bad things, even when they come to a conclusion of teshuva, they want really to reverse their actions.
Yes.
It's not going to happen over short time. It will take time, and it's fine. It's okay, because change, as I say, mostly happen in small steps over time. And unlike the people who criticize the Jewish people in the desert, I always say, because I hear this approach many, many times. I go like to a Torah class on Bamidbar, and I hear this approach, like they were not positive enough, they were complainers. And you know what? I always try to put myself in the shoes of the people who left Egypt. And I think to myself, I'm afraid that if I would be there, I would be exactly like them. I see so many people behave in certain ways today, and I can find the links to the Torah and to say, okay, they behave the way that the Torah expects the person to behave, and the Torah teaches you behave in a different way. And I think that's the point of the Torah. We intuitively, many, many times, go in a certain direction as we used to. We judge people as we used to, and the Torah always give us alternative. Don't do it the way you used to. Try to think about alternative. Try to think about a positive way to change the situation. Not by Lashon Hara, not by hitting a person, not by being jealous at him. Try to find a positive way to deal with the world around you. And I think that's the message of the Torah. And the behavior of Bnei Israel in the desert was very, very normal. Show me one person who will not be upset if every day he's not sure if he will get the food or not. He does not see the end of the tunnel because they are in the desert, again, day after day, day in, day out. They don't know what the future is going to be. In our Parsha, we learn about the situation. When they wake up in the morning, you know what was the question I guess children ask themselves? Is father and mother still alive?
Mm-hmm.
That's a question. Because 600,000 people died in the desert. What does that mean statistically? Every day, people died. So a person, instead of saying Modeani, asked himself, hey, dad, mommy, who died tonight? And what kind of life is this one? I honestly completely understand the Jews in the desert. I don't think that they were complaining more than us. We complain about things which are much less serious than what they went through. And nevertheless, the Torah said, well, this was the boot camp for emunah, for trusting God. and the expectation was higher. But let's not kid ourselves that we are better than what they did. They were the normal. The Torah many times want us to be above the normal.
So why did Joshua not complain? Was he lifting Meshur Sadin? Did he go outside?
I think so. I think that he was with a stronger belief and trust in God. But remember, before he left, Moshe Rabbeinu had to change his name. And according to our sages, the change of his name was God should keep you from being drugged by your friends. Moshe Rabbeinu understood that even his disciple, Joshua, might join forces with the other ones. Can you imagine something like this? He, like, education and dedication of decades was in question once he was with his friends. And seeing the land and understanding that there will be wars and you don't know how they are going to end. And Moshe Rabbeinu had to pray to give him a special blessing that he will not join with his friends. So even someone like Yoshua needed kind of divine strength in order to stand the pressure of his friend, which tells you that his friends were the normal. He was the abnormal person.
You know, it's interesting because I'll say that had Yoshua complained and had he been taken in by his peers, it would have reflected badly on Moshe Rabbeinu as his teacher.
Of course. And listen, I can tell you as a teacher, we want to think that our influence is greater than many other things. But at the end of the day, we all know people are going. Sometimes you have the greatest Rebbe. If your friends are not good, I will tell you who is going to win: the Rebbe versus friends. The friends always win. That's why it's so important just to choose the right friends. Just to choose the right friends, because many people think, oh, if I send him to this yeshiva, if I send him to this institution, he's going to do well because it's well known, it's the reputation is great. But you know, it might be that in one class, in one institution, there will be a group of people, and they will have much more influence than all the rabbeim and all the teachers and all the educators. I saw it in my experience too many times. Friends is
Rabbi,
everything.
what's the first line in Tehillim?
אשרי האיש אשר לא הלך בעצת רשעים, ובדרך חטאים לא עמד, ובמוישב ליצים לא ישב. So, before the second pasuk, which, כי אם בתורת השם חפצו, ותורתו יגע יומם ולילה, actually, there is a point here. Before you start learning, make sure who is the company that you are in. That's a beautiful idea that you inspired right now.
Rabbi, what is a good friend?
A good friend is someone who cares about you. Now you ask me what is to care about you, is someone that is interested in your growth. Sometimes it comes by support, by care, by helping, sometimes by showing you and give you feedback on things that she or he doesn't like. I would say this is the highest degree of friends. Like you to me. Many times you tell me, I didn't like this one. You do it in a beautiful way, but that's why I consider you a friend. There are many people who will say beautiful words to the rabbi. If they mean it or not, I don't know. But when you say, for example, and others, give me an honest feedback and say, I didn't like this. I think you could do here better. That's when I know they really care about me. They want me to grow even more. And I fully appreciate it.
Yes, and I appreciate your friendship as well. Rabbi, you talked before about change, excuse me, and how it comes slowly. I was talking to a friend last night, and we were talking about a certain disdain that she has for herself. Self-love is not enough inside of her. And I said to her, I said, I also used to have a lot of self-disdain when I was growing up and when I was in my teens and 20s and 30s. And over time, as I started to become more confident in myself, and I started to embrace myself more so, that self-love became greater. Now, it's not as though I can't spiral sometimes and think badly of myself and wonder who I am and why am I doing this? And I have such a bad character trait, but mostly not as much as it used to. And I'm very excited about that change. It's very important. What in your life have you managed to change consciously, making a real effort to do so?
That's a very strong question, and I would love to say yes, but I feel the same. Maybe it's like a Jewish plague. We always look, even within ourselves, what is not good,
Yes,
what is that we didn't perform well. And as a Jew, I'm subject to this plague as well. Um, and actually, to be honest with you, sometimes when people say a good word to me, I have a resistance to accept it.
yes.
So I told you, I never went to a session with a psychologist, but I think if one day I will do it, this will be the number one issue that I would like to talk about. Like, why yeah, the self-love of Jews, I don't know anything like this, honestly. Like, to me it sounds so odd, but I know that it's when we say ve'ahavta lereacha kamocha, you have to love someone else like yourself. It means if you don't love yourself, you cannot really love others. You know that?
Correct.
And I feel it very very much, and I was always growing like this, and I see many times like parents talking to their kids in a very critical way, and on one way it can be a motivator, but many times I can see how it can be a destroyer. And how you find the balance, I don't know. Maybe that's why friends are so important, because friends will have this right balance between care and support and love and honest feedback at the same time.
I think that somebody really has to look at themselves at least as they do their best friend. There's an old saying, be as good to yourself at least as you are to your best friend. Watch how you are to your very, very dear friend. Watch how you are. And then turn that back to yourself and say, am I taking care of myself as much as I possibly can? Do I recognize the goodness inside of me? Do I? And embrace yourself. And this was the advice that I was giving to my friend last night. That's not an easy thing, but it's
No, not at all.
extraordinarily important, especially if you're a parent or a grandparent or a teacher or so many different relationships. Like you're saying before, you have to love yourself in order to be able to give that love out to others. And by the way, a big question that we had within our conversation last night is, what is the evidence that you have that you're not a good person or that you're not a good enough person? And she said to me, I honestly, I don't have much evidence because she is a very good person. And I said, and what is the evidence that you are good? Is there things that you could write down to tell me that? She said, a lot of evidence, a lot. And that's what I recommend for others.
That's exactly what I said. It's a Jewish plague, which is terrible because I was part of this discussion with many other people, and they always focus, and they are wonderful people that I admire, and they always focus on the
And the negative.
less appealing sides, which are part of us. A good painting with no shadows, it will not be a good painting,
Good one.
right?
Yes, good one.
And I think maybe if we look for a successful podcast of Room, I will listen to every episode. Maybe people bring all kind of questions about their life, and we discuss it. Listen, we are not, therapists. It's very true, but I think both of us have lots of experience, and we can highlight it many times from the point view of Chazal. I think that many of our listeners already realize that we are quite honest about ourselves and about others. Maybe it's a new direction to our podcast. People
By the way,
bring all kind of issues, and we just discuss it.
yes, we'll be online therapists, sort of. Not really. By the way, I did an interview with a cousin of mine, Rabbi Rosensweig, who brought the whole issue of mental health and halacha forward.
Yoni, his name?
Yeah, Yoni. He's a lovely
Yeah.
guy, extremely intelligent, very well versed in the origins of mental health within the Torah. And I suggest if you're interested in what the rabbi and I are talking about, you know, take a look at that because he's outstanding. Rabbi, I want to ask you, we're doing Shivim Panim here. We're talking about ourselves and life in Israel before we dive into Parsha and Prose, the Parsha being Parshat Chukat. It's a very exciting Parsha. You mentioned before that when students come to your office, having been sent there by a teacher. And, I think in terms of images, my images are very strong in my head. And I'm seeing this image of a young child, a young student coming to your office. And I'm wondering, how do you talk to that person? Do you ever, just flip it around for a second. Do you ever yell? Do you ever shout?
If I did, it was many, many years ago when I was still like furious about things and did not learn that the world is a little bit more complicated than I know. Shouting on a student, it's not my style, but certainly I could if I would not like control myself. Sometimes you can be really upset, but I don't think that it ever happened. Um, Listen, you know what? As an educator, my job is to make sure that the future is going to be different. I cannot control what happened to a student, and there are many reasons why students behaved in a certain way. And to me, the approach, and to many students I see, it's very refreshing. I said, okay, we put the past behind us. Obviously, you have to pay the price for talking in a certain way to a teacher, to not doing your job, for mistreating your friends, for abusing maybe someone. It all happens sometimes. But if we are going to dig into it too much, we are just going to actually expand the problem. That's my opinion. My job and my success, I would say, in my job was always to show, okay, how can we go from here to a brighter future and to set up some steps, not just to talk how important it is to change, how we do this one. Sometimes I say to a student, listen, in the last months, I can see that you missed 30 classes, let's say. Oh, okay, that's a lot. For next month, we make it here, we drop it by 20%. Now, you will say, what? It's still like 24 missing classes. Yes, but it's 24 compared to 30. Next month, it's going to be another 20% less. This way is just an example, obviously. I gave an attainable steps to someone to change. And there is another message here. There is a future. We cannot dig why it happened that 30 times you were not in your classes. Who cares anymore? It happened. What we have to make sure that it's not happening again. And here are the steps. We will do this and this. If you were caught, you don't lie about it. You say, yes, I take responsibility for it. I pay the price for it. And we continue from there on. Sometimes we want problem to cease at once. It's not happening. And my job is just to show how we can go from point A to B, even if it's not A to C. Small steps, sometimes baby steps, but with one direction. The direction is hope, future, destination. And I think that students like this message. They don't want people to dig into their past as much as they can see a greater future for themselves.
Do you like young people?
Very much so, because they are still can change.
Yeah.
They can, you can really influence them. It's very, very hard to influence people in older age. They already have their habits that we discussed before. And to change habits of a person who is 14 years old is easier than when he's 20 years old, and much easier when he's 50 years old. And I'm very lucky and at the same time very responsible to the future of people in maybe the most vulnerable point of their life. I have to direct them in the right way to build them, to build them. That's very, very important. And education is built upon two major tasks. One, I would say, is pruning. You have to make sure that certain things are pruned and not going to be a major problem. So part of the gardener or part of the farmer is to make sure that if you have branches that grow in the wrong direction, you have to prune them. You have to make sure that it stops there. But woe to the educator who see himself only as discipliner, as a person who prune the branches this way. You have to be a real gardener. You have to water. You have to fertilize. You have to bring the light and the love to the students to build the student. That's the most important thing. And sometimes it's very easy to focus on the cutting of the pruning instead of the nourishing, fertilizing, so to speak, watering. Make sure that the tree is growing well. So one without the other is impossible. By the way, every person will tell you, in my backyard, there is two vines that the person before me had. And to me, every year, it's a great lesson about life and about education. Because you have to prune, you must, but at the same time, you must make sure that you take care and the grapes coming nice, healthy, and to me, I just take it to the classroom and think about it many, many times. Like the two roles of a teacher: on one hand, to discipline, but to keep your eyes on the most important thing. It's not discipline, it's about letting a student grow. And many, many times I tell teachers, what is your great job? What my wife is telling me many times about the kitchen. You want to help me? Be out the kitchen. You want to help a student? Sometimes don't stand in her or his ways. Let them grow. Try not to ruin the process of growing. And trust me, that's a great advice to any teacher.
Rabbi, before we dive into the parsha, and I promise we will in a moment, did your parenting help your teaching, or did your teaching help your parenting more so?
Um, that's a very good question that I have to think about. Um, I think that teaching actually helped my parenting because the issue of pruning. As parents, many, many times we don't want to see, number one, if our children need sometimes some discipline. It sometimes laziness, it's sometimes the love that blind us. And from my experience as a teacher, I saw that you need it. To grow a healthy personality, you have to have lots of love, but you also have sometimes to discipline. And so I thought that teaching taught me more about parenting than the other way around. And you just hit something very interesting. If we have enough time for this, there are beautiful two quotes from the Talmud about Moses and Aaron. I think we maybe will talk about Aaron, the brother of Moshe Rabbeinu. And there is something very interesting. Moshe Rabbeinu was Moshe Rabbeinu. But he did not apparently had the time to teach his own children. And it happened many, many times to great people that, they are so occupied with issues of others and that they don't pay attention to what is happening with their own children. And it says that they learned by the brother, Asher Yuldu al Birkei Moshe. I'm sorry, it's Aaron, the children of Aaron who learned by Moshe Rabbeinu. And Chachamim said about it something very interesting, that כל המלמד בין חברו Torah, everyone who is teaching his friend's son Torah is considered like כאילו ילדו. Is like he considered like to be another father, like a stepfather for the child. And there is another quote that said quite the same, כל המלמד את בן בנו תורה, את בן חברו תורה, someone who teaches the son of his friend Torah, מלמד כאילו עשאו. It considered like he made him. שנאמר, הנפש אשר עשו בחרן. About Aaron and Sarah, they like made the people by converting them, teaching them, they made them anew. So one quote is like you give birth to this person, and the other one is making him. And to me, that's exactly the difference between a teacher and a father. A father loves his child. He nourishes him. He has to guide him, sometimes to discipline him. But at the same time, I can tell you that when parents came to parent-teachers interview, and they tell them, he's doing like this, he's doing like that, she's not paying attention. My daughter, my son, how dare you to say such things about my child? Okay, they see them maybe 20 minutes a day or an hour. I see them like for 7 hours a day. And they always wonder, like, what, you don't trust my professional judgment? And the answer is, they shouldn't. They are the parents. They have something that I will never have. The love to their children. They're seeing the bigger picture at home with their parent, with a grandparent. They see a bigger picture. Their job is to try to show me things that I don't see. And at the same time, we also need the כאילו עשאו, like the person who make things by sometimes reshape it, painting it. That's the job of the teacher. And the great teacher sometimes can be a father and a teacher, at the same time. But we have these two aspects of education. That was my bar Torah for today.
Yisrael, thanks for joining us, folks. Ladies and gentlemen, the show is called Parsha Prose, and this week we are studying Parshat Chukat. And I'd just like to tell you a little bit about it before we dive into some questions. The Torah portion Chukat, which is Numbers 19:1 to 22:1, presents a profound exploration of faith, obedience, and transition within the Israelite journey. This parsha, meaning statute or decree, opens with the enigmatic law of the red heifer, a ritual purification process that defies human logic, emphasizing the importance of adhering to divine commandments even when their purpose is not fully understood. As the narrative unfolds, it recounts pivotal moments: the death of Miriam, the death of Aaron, Moses' sin at the waters of Meribah, and the Israelites' continued wandering as they approached the promised land. These events highlight themes of morality, leadership, and the challenge of maintaining trust in God amidst great adversity. Chukat invites reflection on the balance between questioning and accepting divine will, the consequences of action, and the enduring hope of redemption as the Israelites stand on the cusp of a new chapter. The red heifer, indeed, it is a chok. And a chok is a mitzvah, commandment from God, without explanation. We have no idea why we're doing it. In fact, we're criticized by the non-Jew. They say, look how silly the Torah is. You're giving a law like red heifer. It's absurd. What is God trying to teach us here?
Well, first of all, we have to understand what is exactly the boundaries of Chukah. You have to remember that many laws in the Torah are named as Chukah. I'll give you one example. You know that all the holidays in Parshat Emor are defined as Chukah, and we actually do understand them. We do understand why we have to commemorate Pesach and Shavuos and Sukkot. So I'm not sure exactly on what aspect our sages explained Chukah as something which lack rationality, because most of the laws in Vayikra, if you think about the fact that people can be holy or unholy, this by itself is a concept that repeats itself many, many times in Vayikra. And by the way, we say dot chukat atzarat. We speak about many other chukim. So I get that there is one aspect in the issue of para aduma, maybe two main aspects, which are beyond our understanding. Number one is the fact that indeed there is something very interesting about the para aduma. You take the most unholiness situation where a person came in touch with a dead person, and by sprinkling the para aduma according to the process, the ashes of the red heifer, he became tahor. So the power of the water somehow can overcome the unholiness, the defilement of a person. At the same time, everyone who touches the water, and he was not unholy, he was actually a Kohen, he was holy, they coming in touch with this holy water, so to speak,
Yes.
they become tameh. For one day, until they go to the mikveh, they cannot come to the mikdash again, to the temple. So you have here something which is kind of oxymoron, like something that is at the same time purify, and the same process unpurify the people who are doing the process. So I think this was maybe what our sages refer to when they say that there is no logic in this mitzvah, number one. Number two, I believe that the whole idea of para aduma has something very unique that we don't think about it. Para aduma look like a korban, like any other sacrifice that we had in the temple. You shecht it according to certain laws. You have to burn it like you burn many of the sacrifice, but you don't do it in the mikdash itself. You do it outside the mikdash. You do it outside the temple on a mountain, where is today Har HaZeitim. There where you are doing it, you see the Beit HaMikdash, but you cannot do it in the temple itself. Now, this is serious, because the Torah says that you cannot bring any korban outside Beit HaMikdash. And this is something which is exception to the rule. You do the whole process, but deliberately you cannot do it in Beit HaMikdash. If you do it in Beit HaMikdash, like any other korban, it's going to be disqualified. You have to to do the entire process to find a new cow, which is not simple, and do it again. And this is strange. Why indeed something like this, which is so important because it enables people to come back to the temple, cannot be done in the temple itself? Why you have to do it outside? I think this is the other odd fact about the red heifer that Chachamim said, where there is no logic in it, somehow. But I think that all the other laws, I can't find them stranger than all the other laws in Sefer Vayikra or other mitzvot. Many of them are hard to explain.
Rabbi, how does the chok of the red heifer, which involves burning the cow and mixing its ashes with water for purification, illustrate the tension between human curiosity and the acceptance of divine mysteries in Jewish tradition?
Well, it is a mystery, as I said. It is a mystery. If King Solomon said that he understands 612 mitzvot, one he cannot understand. This is a mitzvah of para aduma. Who is not King Solomon, but Shlomo Gemara to try to explain it. I'm not competing. I'm not in the league of Shlomo HaMelech. But I think that the answer is that sometimes the mystery itself play a role. Death is a mystery. We don't know what happened after. We are left without the people who guide us, the people that we were very close to. And this is a big mystery to us, because how the world is going to look like after that. And you take like a mysterious ceremony of the para aduma, And somehow you confirm the fact that life is a mystery. But nevertheless, the mystery has to go on, so to speak. You enable people to continue with their life, with their rituals, with coming to the temple, to stay with your questions, but nevertheless to continue what you started and to go on from the point that the people who ceased to be part of your life, somehow you continue their legacy and their deeds. So sometimes we, in the modern world, we want to solve every question. Science is all about, I have a question, I'm looking for an answer. In the religious world, sometimes the question might be answered with another question, and that's fine, that's okay. Maybe one day we call the next world is Olam HaEmet, where all the things that we have doubts about, we have questions about, will be resolved afterwards when we go to a better world. In this world, we live with mysteries. We live with questions. I don't know one person in my life who does not have questions about the most fundamental things, about God, about the way he runs the world, about his involvement in all kinds of things, and that's fine. But the mystery, the questions we have to find a way to go forward. We might have questions, but the direction is go on with your life.
Well, what you're saying is very reflected in the Talmud, where there is a concept called teku. Do you want to explain that?
So we have indeed something that is called teku, which means you have discussions and proofs and disproof and do proof and disproof. Everyone who learn Talmud know that sometimes you have for one concept, you might have like 10 and sometimes even more tries to prove a certain opinion. And then it disproved. Then it's like a intellectual ping pong, like each one. And at the end, you are waiting to see, okay, so what is the end of all of this? Who is right, who is wrong? Is it Rab Nachman, is it Rabbi Yitzchak, is it Rabbi, is it Abai? And then you come with this kind of question. Oh, what the law? Teku. Teku means it's a tie. Like we cannot actually determine who to follow upon the proofs each one brings. And the word teku, which in our simple Aramaic is like, okay, it will stand. It will stand. We will not have an answer to it. Is also translated beautifully to Rashi Tevot, to our acronym of Tishbi, Taf, Tishbi, which is Eliyahu Navi, Eliyahu Tishbi. Yetaretz, he is going to come and answer. Kushiyot, question, and by the way, kushia, question, it comes from the same root. Ubaayot. There are things that we will have to wait until Eliyahu will come and he will answer it. What we are going to do in between, we will continue. Yes. We will wait for the moment when we can ask a question. But Jewish life never stops because you have a question. And we all have questions. The message is, one day, the problems, the question, the ibayot that we have in the Talmud will be resolved. What are you going to do now? To close your Gemara and to say, okay, until I get a question, I'm not going to go on? No. You just say it's a teku, it will stand there, and I'm going to the next blot.
And it's also reflective, excuse me, of the fact that the argumentation in of itself is the journey, right?
Absolutely.
Right.
Which is sometimes even more important. The truth is, I have to tell you, in the hierarchy of the religious world, there are two main jobs. One is the rabbi, one is the Rosh Yeshiva. Rosh Yeshiva is the person who is the head of the Academy of Torah. At least in the now, sometimes it might be the same person. In Europe, all over Europe, usually the rabbi of the town also had a yeshiva to lead. But today it became quite separate. There is a Rosh Yeshiva, like the head of the Academy of Torah, and you have the rabbi. And in the last 200 years, the hierarchy is quite clear. The Rosh Yeshiva, the person who knows to delve into the concepts, to try to understand the little parts of every sugya, is above the rabbi. A rabbi is a job for people who, for some reason, did not come to be a Rosh Yeshiva. And think about it. The Rosh Yeshiva is a person of the process of to understand like what is happening. And sometimes I had a Rosh Yeshiva and I'm okay, what should we do after all this? I don't care. Go and ask the rabbi, which tells you exactly how it works. Like you have much more admiration to the process of the understanding of being able to see the nuances of every sugya rather than, okay, what should I do? Okay, what should I do? Okay, go open the Shulchan Aruch. But how the Shulchan Aruch, this book of laws, came to this conclusion, oh, this is much more important. That's why people, and why the Jewish people admire so much the learning of the Talmud, because it's about the process.
Rabbi, about 5 years ago, my sister died, Naomi. God bless her soul. And
I
then 2 years
remember
later,
her.
thank you, her husband died, Rabbi Benjamin Hecht, whom you knew.
I did.
And from the moment that we were notified about her death till today, I think about her as my siblings do, as obviously her children do, even more so. And it was an enormous um, moment in our life, continues to be so. I once asked Rabbi Scheim, formerly of Beth David Synagogue, what were the most difficult funerals for you, other than children, of course? He said siblings, because you are basically you're born having them. You know them your entire life. They know you, and the idea that you're living a life without a sibling is kind of anathema to how we lead our day-to-day life. In this Parshat Chukat, Miriam dies, Moshe's sister. Aaron dies, Moshe's brother. And there's very little written about it. Very little. And one has to wonder, why is the narrative within the Torah so economized? Why is it so efficient, so small, so short, when we know that the death of a sibling, Moshe's companions throughout this whole trek, was so great? They were so involved. Why so little?
Um, Number one, I don't think it's so little. Um, Taking the Torah as a book of morals and not just documenting what happened in the desert, we know many people and we have no idea when they died. If you think about a person like Nachshon ben Aminadav, or even Moshe Rabbeinu when he died, or Miriam when she died, we have kind of traditions about it, but it's not mentioned in the Torah. But the Torah found it important to say, and this I think the only case that we know when a person died about Aaron. The Torah wants us to remember that it happened on the first day of Chodesh Av that Aaron passed away. And remember, they were indeed siblings, but at this time, Moshe Rabbeinu is not a kid anymore. He's 120. His brother Aaron is 123. And his sister is 126. Well, and they knew that the generation of the desert is not going to come to Eretz Israel, and they are just about to enter the land. They knew that their days are numbered, and I think the psychological effect here, I think, was a little bit diluted with the fact that there was expectations for these people to not cross the Jordan and to die just before the nation crossed the Jordan. But you have to remember that for Miriam, for example, the entire nation is waiting until her Shiva is over.
Mhm.
And the Torah mentioned it, I think, for a good reason. This was the time to repay, in a way, to the sister of Moshe for everything that she did for the Jewish women, the Jewish people, saving Moshe Rabbeinu, being a wonderful leader throughout their journey in the desert. The emotional effect, listen, even when Aaron lost his two children, what did the Torah say? Only two words, Vayidom Aaron. The Torah is not a book of so many emotions. And you know why? I'll tell you. Because different siblings react differently. The Torah does not want to teach us how we should emotionally react to a certain situation.
Mhm.
So the Torah actually said what Aaron did not do. Vayidom Aaron. Maybe he cried, maybe he didn't. Maybe he went to seek support from his brother, maybe he didn't. We don't know, because the Torah just wants to guide us, and different people will react differently to situations like this. And I think the truth is also about the death of Aaron and Miriam. Um, your reaction to the passing of Naomi, for example, might be different than the reaction of another sister. So the Torah does not tell us how we have to feel, but the Torah mentioned how important it was in the life of the nation. The people stayed another 7 days. They are just dying to cross the Jordan. And no, out of respect, they stayed where they were in order to respect the memory of Miriam. And people did it maybe in different ways. And I think the truth is the same about your question.
So when the Torah tells us that Rivka loved Yaakov, right, and Yitzchak loved Esav, is the Torah not telling that to us in order for us to understand their emotional relationship, but more so a process that was about to unfold?
I think so. I think the Torah want to explain us why actually Rivka joined forces with Yaakov against her husband. This is like in term of family dynamic. This is very, very serious. And you know, most people don't even realize that just before Jacob is leaving, Yitzchak is giving him a very, very significant blessing. Like this is like we start with Yitzchak loving Esav, but we forget that at the end of the whole episode, he actually got it. He got that Yaakov is going to continue the legend of Avram himself, Yitzchak, and forward to his children, and it's not going to be Esav, although he loved him. Now, when the Torah said he loved, what does that exactly mean? What exactly that mean? So you will find very, very small amount of emotional descriptions in the Torah. As I said, like love, will. The Torah is not about this one. Not because it's not important, but the Torah does not want to portray feelings in a certain way because people react differently to things, and you don't have to think about yourself. Oh, I don't react in the right way.
Mm-hmm.
You are an individual. You should know that this is significant, but availute, for example, is different from one person to another.
That's a great answer. Great answer. Rabbi, there are a number of books out there dealing with sibling death. One of them is My Sister Lives on the Mantelpiece by Annabelle Pitcher. Another is Bridged by Tara Bethia by Catherine Patterson. And then another one is one of our favorites, which we actually used in Parsha and Prose, The Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger. And Holden Caulfield grapples with the loss of his younger brother, Ali,
Ali.
whose death profoundly shapes his emotional turmoil and alienation. The novel delves into grief's lasting impact on identity and mental health.
But not only that, if I think that if you read it carefully, the death of Eli um, influenced the whole life of Holden, because he become like a guard, the guarding angel of the innocence of children. And he's very, very afraid of this, adulthood process. And no question that if you read it carefully, you understand that all his life is actually in light or like shadowed by the death of his younger brother. And if I'm not mistaken, the description, he was sleeping in the garage or something like this, and he broke all the window there when
Yeah, he
learned
broke.
that.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah, that he learned about the death of his brother. That's like an episode that I still remember, like the pain of realizing that he could not protect his brother. And death is something beyond our ability to control. Yes.
Bibi Netanyahu lost his brother Yoni.
Actually, the Yortzeit, I think, happened a day or two ago.
Yes, and he was killed leading the rescue of 102 hostages in Uganda. And Netanyahu described the moment he learned of Yoni's death as one of the most immense pain that he had gone through, recounting the 7-hour drive to inform his parents in Ithaca, New York,
Yeah.
as the Via Dolorosa of unspeakable pain. He has frequently shared his ongoing sense of loss, stating in 2019 tweet, "My brother Yoni, it's been 43 years. I miss you every day." And in a 2025 post on X, "Almost 50 years have passed," he wrote, "but it feels like it was yesterday. There isn't a day I don't think about him." These reflections highlight a deep personal wound that persists decades later. Rabbi, with that, do you think that Moshe Rabbeinu may have sinned by hitting the rock instead of speaking to it because in part he was so distraught?
It's a very interesting direction. Never thought about this one. Um, that's a very interesting direction. But I can see Moshe Rabbeinu, first of all, we don't know exactly what went wrong. If you open any book about the scene of Moshe Rabbeinu, you will see so many interpretation to the scene. And I think that Barbanelli himself said, when you see so many opinions, it comes to highlight one fact that you really don't know exactly what was the scene. If you need too many explanations to something, then you don't really understand what it is. And it's like going to the doctor and they say like, maybe it's this and maybe that, or you know what, there is also a theory about this one and this one and this one. And you leave the office and you know one thing, it's painful, but I have no idea where it comes from. And we do know that from the punishment that Moshe Rabbeinu got not to enter Eretz Israel, that he did something wrong. What is this something? No one knows for sure, and the Torah leave it very much in a vague, foggy area. What exactly went wrong? But his leadership apparently was not what was expected, and it makes lots of sense that his leadership was part relying on his brother and sister. And once he lost them, it's a table with 3 legs, 2 are gone. Then even if the other one is very strong, the table cannot stand in the air. It will collapse.
Rabbi, Moshe Rabbeinu approached the Edomites asking that the Jewish people be able to pass through their land. They said no. Were they just jerks?
Let's start with a positive thing. They were terrified.
Yeah.
New neighbors, a nation that no one knows. What they know about them is that it's a nation that managed to break the laws of society. A nation of slaves that left Egypt. Who knows what is going to happen next? By the way, I want to tell you, I think that think about the Ammonites. You know what? Let's talk a little bit as business people, because I think it's very, very important to read the Parsha through these eyes. You have about 2 million people working from one place to another, and I offer you to purchase your water, to buy your food, as long as I'm in your country until I'm going away. What do you think like a contract like this worth in these days? 2 million people like walking through days, few days or maybe weeks through
Millions.
your land.
Millions.
This is millions. Think about like the big deal maker, with the beautiful big bills. He would jump on it right away. Like you have like a nation of people moving from one place to another, and he can make millions of dollars, and they offer, we will pay as much as it costs. No, they don't want it. They don't want the money, although they could gain a lot. And think about the enemies around Israel today. Like, you know how much they could gain from cooperation with Israel? I think that the world is going to see it because I'm pretty hopeful that the Abraham Accords are going to be fulfilled and materialized, and you will see how the new Middle East is going to look like. I hope I'm not too naive, but I think everyone can understand at least the potential here. They were so terrified, they didn't want any business with the Jewish people. And we don't judge them unfavorably because of this one. The Ramban says something that we have to remember, and it's highly, highly important. The reason why the Torah taught us to not accept these people into our congregation is not because they were afraid. This is quite normal. It's because they were related to us. The Ammonites, the Moabites, the Edomites, they were part of our family. If it was the descendants of Esau, if it was the descendants of Lot, who was a cousin of Abraham, who was saved by Abraham. If not the Jewish people, there would be no Edomites or Moabites and Ammonites. So now, when you're okay, not first cousin, maybe second cousins, need your help, and they don't ask for much. They want not that you will give them like a charity. They want to purchase your products and to pay you in the most honest way. And you don't have it like to have mercy on your family, on your relatives. Shame on you. You cannot come into the congregation of Am Yisrael, because for us, and don't let Shlomo Gemara talk. Let Avrum Rosensweig say, what does it mean for us to feed others that we don't know, that we have no connection to, they are not our relatives, but we feel the responsibility to feed them at a low moment of their life. And for this, the Torah said, you, the Jewish people who are trained for kindness, should have zero contact with people who cannot help even their close relatives at the time of need.
So the Torah tells us that we're not to hate the Egyptians, right?
Exactly.
What about the Edomites?
Phenomenon. That's right. Because the Egyptians, and this is a very complicated dilemma. And we don't have to go to the Egyptians. I raised this question to my students once. What do you think about the Jewish approach to Russia? I know many, many people who feel that if not the Russian fighting the Nazis, they would not be liberated by, and be alive today. Many of them passed away. But I heard from my father-in-law and mother-in-law the day that the Russian arrived and the Nazis left them behind and enabled their survival. At the same time, we cannot forget what Stalin did to so many people in his land and to the Jewish people. So how do we deal with this? Like, on one hand, we feel gratitude for what they did. At the same time, we should feel that we hate what they did to the Jewish people. And here comes the Torah with a beautiful insight. The Egyptians enslaved you for more than 100 years. Never forget the good thing that they did. At the time of famine, the family came to Egypt, was sustained there. You never forget someone who did wonderful things to you. And we the Jewish people, I think we know to appreciate. If you think about Yad Vashem And the whole institution of righteous among the nations. What does that mean? You save the Jew, we commit ourselves to help your family forever. That's the law in Israel. You know, as long as they lived and these children are alive, Israel is helping them every single month. You get a check from the Israeli government. How beautiful it is. You know, this school is named after Wallenberg. Wallenberg was not Jewish, but we want our students to remember, to be grateful for a person who helped us in a dark moment, and we will never forget it.
Rabbi, in conclusion, I've been studying quite a bit of archaeology lately, and there's very little evidence, direct evidence, of Yetziat Mitzrayim or the Jews in the desert. Does that bother you at all?
It is, as a person of science, I would expect to have, you know, if 2 million people are walking the desert, to leave something behind them. How can I say that it doesn't bother me when archaeology is a science, not something of intuition? And I would love to find evidence to the journey of 40 years in the desert. Does it take away my emuna in the truth in the story? Not at all. Not at all. To me, the story of the Torah as it went through the generation is stronger than any scientific evidence. And I'll listen. If it would not be the Jewish people, I might raise some question. But Avrum, if I will tell you that I went on the street and you know there was a tree with golden apples on it, this will not go very well. I mean, you will laugh. You will tell me that I have to see someone, which might be true, and people will not accept such a strange, unbelievable story. It's really unbelievable story. The fact that these traditions went through the Jewish people for such a long time, to me, is the greatest of evidence that it really happened. Because when I heard a story from my father and it's being proved by everyone that I know, then I know that there were concentration camps. It's not like a fabrication because this person is telling me and this lady is telling me about their experiences. And therefore, this story about what happened in the Holocaust will go 5,000 uninterrupted, 5,000 years uninterrupted through history because it happened. No one can invent and fabricate such a story. And I do strongly believe the same about the Torah. So maybe one day they will find more evidence. After all, we are talking about like an area that we don't know exactly where everyone was. Maybe there will some explanation. So I tell my students very honestly, you should know, you are going to hear that there is no archaeological evidence to the story of Yetziat Mitzrayim. I will be honest with you. I don't want you to come to university and to say, oh, Rabbi Gemara was such a liar. It never happened. I am telling you that there are no clear evidence, as far as I know at least, because I know that from time to time there are like kind of clips and articles. And by the way, I think that the grandfather of Bibi Netanyahu and Yoni Netanyahu actually wrote about it. He was like a Russian a Jew who wrote about Milikovsky. He wrote about the lack of archaeological evidence in Yetziat Mitzrayim. But again, I would accept the common archaeological, the way they see that actually there is no clear evidence to Yetziat Mitzrayim. And I don't care about it. And I say, what I teach you Torah. I strongly believe in every fabric of my, every tissue of my body that this story happened. And like many other things that sometimes I don't have evidence on the spot, I will wait. As you say, teku, maybe Eliyahu will come one day and will show us exactly where they buried all their stuff and the things that they lost and so on. I have the patience to wait.
I would like to, perhaps in our next podcast, to talk about faith a little bit. I think there's a lot to say about faith. A lot of it's misunderstood. and I would be very interested in your take on what faith
I
is.
hope I can add because I'm not an expert, with proofs and things like this. But if I can add something, I'll be more than happy.
So, Rabbi, I want to wish you Yisher Koach on this podcast, on this shiur, if you will. I thought it was very enlightening, and I think
You mean I talk too much or what?
no, you were great. You were great. There are podcasts that we do, and I can see how overworked you are. You're a little bit tired, and you bring as much as you possibly can. But I've seen it, right? And then there are podcasts where you're absolutely on fire. Then there's places in the middle. Today, you had a good brand to you. You had a good fire to you. Yeah, it was good.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I also want to thank our listeners and our viewers for being part of this. I don't have a poem this week from AI.
Okay, yeah, this will be a bad week for me, Avrum.
Why? Why is that?
You will no poem of AI is like breaking a tradition.
Oh, I see. I see. I do want to put out there, by the way, that if people are on Chat GBT, that they should check out what's called Architect AI. It's called Architect AI, and it has to do with the soul. I'll leave it at that.
Wow.
Architect AI. Anyways, I want to thank everybody for being with us, for joining us. As we say every week, please be in touch. Let us know how you feel about our podcast. We're open to ideas. We're open to thoughts. The Rabbi and I are working on the podcast always to rejig it here and there to make sure that we continue to make it interesting, and we're open to your ideas. So please feel free to be in touch. Any final words, Rabbi?
Yeah, it was a nice podcast to discuss. I can feel that I am less stressed than usual. As I said, we are working now in a different phase as administrators and educators. I want to hope that very soon we are going to see the hostages. Things are moving quite fast in the Middle East, but we want to see them alive and back with their families, with us.
Amen. And with that, we would like to remember the hostages in Israel. We would like to remember the IDF, many of whom have died during these wars, and also the brave and courageous family members who are absolutely strong and incredible. I've spoken to many family members who went through the war with Iran, as you too have, Rabbi, and it was not easy. It was not easy at all. They suffered a lot. They said every 3 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, 8 in the morning, running to the bomb shelters with
Yeah.
little kids, right? So we give our learning over to them. That's what we do. Until next week, folks. Zeigazint, go in good health. I'm Yisrael Chai, proud to be a Jew, and we look forward to learning and teaching the Parsha Shvua through Parsha and Prose once again next week, God willing. Thank you so much.